Hello, everyone, and welcome to Free Game. Tonight, we'll be talking about presenting business ideas and making the pitch. My name is Chantel Mack, part of Team Whitaker Group, and we're so excited to have you all here tonight. As always, you could have chosen to be anywhere else, so we are very grateful that you chose to be here with us. We're in for a treat, for great conversation, and great vibes. So I will turn it over to James so he can get us started with the panelists.
What's good, everybody? James Whitner, owner and founder of the Whitaker Group. We got a hell of a panel tonight. The team keeps coming up with like a crew. So I mean, I think I'll let them go through because we got quite a deep panel. Leslie, you want to start, and then let's pass it around, and then we'll get going.
Yeah, I'll kick us off. Leslie Green, you guys can just call me Les. Spent 10 years at Nike in various marketing roles, which is where I met most of these beautiful people on the panel. Most recently, I just started at a creator commerce company based in the Bay called Spring. And I'm super excited to be here. I love what the Whitaker Group is doing with these free game sessions, and just happy to be a part of it.
That's what's up, Les. J May, you want to go next?
Oh,
and listen, if y'all never spoke with J May, man, listen, like J May gets me out of can get me out of my worst moods, man. He truly is one of the brothers who, man, lights a fire under me when we talk. J May, go for it.
Man, appreciate you, man. Can y'all hear me? We'll make sure this external mic is working.
Yeah, we can hear you well.
But Jason Maiden, done various things throughout my career. Worked at Nike in innovation and design. Worked in venture capital. Started several tech companies, soft goods companies. Now I run two companies, one being a new business started in conjunction with Adidas, Fear of God Athletics, where I'm president and partner in that business, but also Trillicon Valley, which is a angel investment firm in the Silicon Valley that looks at technology, soft goods, SaaS, AI, and consumer-facing products. At the end of the day, I'm just a Black dude from the South Side of Chicago that's been very blessed and fortunate to leverage, what society deems, I would say Achilles heels. Curiosity and creativity can be Achilles heels if you don't have a jump shot. So I turned creativity into my jump shot and manifested a life that I feel proud of. And I met all these people along my journey. Brilliant minds on this call. So I do encourage everyone to just ask authentic, honest questions, because these are some of the most authentic and honest people that I've ever had the good fortune of interacting with, in my journey. So it's a privilege to be here. Always a privilege to share space with you, James. You know how I feel about you, brother. So yeah, thank y'all for having me.
And somebody else who I've had the pleasure of doing one of these events with, Portia. I was her wingman on the event last year. It's good to be back with you.
It is, James, likewise. Thank you for having me. I'm Portia Blunt. I currently am the Vice President of Apparel at Reebok. I've been in the industry over 20 years and in a lot of different capacities: design, product development, product management. Was at New Balance for 13 years and started my career as a designer for the United States Marine Corps. Don't ask, it's a long story, but yeah. But really happy to be here and to just really kind of chop it up with everybody on the panel who's got so much amazing experience, and just really want to be able to kind of give it back, help everybody on the call, all 68 of you, in terms of your journey. So it's great to be here tonight.
Let's keep it going with the lady, Shireen.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Shireen Russell here. I originally am from Charlotte, North Carolina.
Say it again.
I migrated from the North Cackalack, if you will, to New York circa 21 years ago now, after graduating from Wake Forest. I left Wake Forest and started off at Time Magazine, and then migrated over to Sports Illustrated. And after 5 years in print, moved into television. I worked at MTV and Viacom across the entire portfolio of networks, inclusive of Comedy Central, some VH1, Nickelodeon, and a myriad of others for close to 10 years, and then was recruited to come to work for the Oprah Winfrey Network. And now I'm at OWN, and I've been the SVP, or I am the SVP of ad sales and inclusion content strategy and monetization. So in that role, I not only work on OWN, but I also work across Food Network, TLC, HGTV, our streaming platform, D+, and a few other networks all around, making sure that people like us show up in content with accuracy, with authenticity, and our stories are reflected with honor, integrity, and respect. And I make sure that the partners that we align with do the very same. So that's what I do.
And last but not least, JJG.
How's everybody doing? Man, it's like a journey just hearing all those introductions, because I feel like there's so many dots that have connected in the past. Like Portia, I worked at New Balance for a little bit of extent. Me and J-May know each other from way back from Detroit, going to school together. Me and Les kick it every week, long time Nike vets. Shireen, this is my first time meeting you, but I hope we can kick it as well at some point, talk about some of the stuff you were talking about. But yeah, Jonathan Johnson Griffin. Most people know me as JJG. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, by way of Detroit, by way of Cincinnati, now out in Oregon, working for Nike. Started my career designing shoes. So worked at New Balance for a bit, worked at Nike for a bit. And now I'm the head of creative at Nike. So, my journey has been truly a storyteller in a lot of different forms, whether it be through products, whether it be through advertisements, whether it be through purpose, athletes, etc. So really excited to be here and, chop it up with you guys for the next 45 minutes to talk about the art of the pitch.
All right, so let's dig into it a little bit, right? Because a lot of people tend to think things just happen, right? And in some of our conversations, we start talking about the pitch, and I made a joke. In our lives, I think everything about it actually becomes the pitch, right? You walk around getting prepared, and it becomes a mental exercise. So I'll let you guys pick, right? I'm gonna come up to court. Let's see who's hot. JJG or J-May, feel free, jump in.
I'm gonna let my brother from Sanford over there kick us off, and I'm gonna follow him.
Oh man, y'all caught me. Okay, so
Well, here I'll give you some there. I'll make it easy, right? Because the idea of it is, in something you say always sticks with me, right? Yeah. The idea is you got to walk in and understand that where our purpose is planned for us, right? And we gotta live into it, right? That's something I heard you say to me a long time ago. Live into it, right? And too many times we come in thinking that we don't add value to the rooms that we're in, right? And sometimes you need to level set the thought process, right?
Absolutely.
So you kind of went there when we were talking a few days ago. Yeah, take me back to that place.
Yeah, I think it's a faculty of understanding that when they talk about the sauce, that we're the main ingredient. And a lot of people can replicate what we do, but they can't authentically integrate what we do into their systems without us. So inherently knowing your value and the value that you bring to every room is essential to being able to command the energy in that room. Because negotiation is nothing but a power transference. It's what are you willing to give up? What am I going to receive? A presentation is the step that precedes a negotiation. Anything you do, from how you dress to how you speak to how the room is laid out, needs to be authentic to who you are and to what you want to represent. We talk often in our communities of color, specifically the Black community, about what our ancestors had to do with code switching. And we understand the significance of what code switching did for them. We necessarily don't have to play that game in that way anymore, because we could be unapologetically us, standing next to these exceptionally mediocre people. 99% of the folks that I've dealt with that are non-melanated, that work in this industry, are literally cosplaying Black culture. They see us, they mimic it, they try to act like us and tell us that by us being authentic, it's not as valuable. That's fundamentally false. So when we understand our inherent purpose, we understand our inherent value in any circumstance, in any room, in any circle, we show up authentically, we're able to command a certain level of respect. And if that respect isn't given to you, you have to feel confident enough to get up and exit out of presentations and exit out of negotiations. There's been plenty of things that I've stood up and walked out of because I felt that people were playing games with me. Because one thing I won't do, I won't tolerate disrespect for any amount of money or any opportunity. If a person can't see me as a peer, and in some cases as a superior, because I am a person that has worked exceptionally hard to do what I do, then I'm not going to stand there and let them demean me and try to, sneak diss me or passive aggressively dismiss what I have to say. It takes a long time to get to that point. It takes a lot of lumps. It takes a lot of hits. It takes a lot of swallowing your pride and your ego. So this isn't a reflection of arrogance. This is a reflection of confidence, because I know I'm supposed to be there because I was born with something purposeful that's being unleashed in a moment such as this. And you got to carry that energy with you, because this industry that we're in specifically is designed to monetize Blackness without us getting the upside of that opportunity. It's a derivative of a slave trade. It's a derivative of us being chattel property in the United States corporation. It's all a function of that. So these are the same people who would have put you on an auction block are the same ones flipping shoes on StockX. Please understand that. And once we understand that, you can realize why they get upset when we go in and we know our value, we tell our stories, and we communicate directly to our people. This isn't just externally facing, this is internally facing. If you sit at lunch with a group of Black folk, they ask you, what are you guys doing, planning a revolt? My answer was always yes, yes. And you the first one we coming from. And you see their face like, huh, and it's like, so you got to realize the games that they play. We don't have a shortage of opportunities. What we do have a shortage of are things that reinforce our self-worth. So all these people on this call are possibilities. These are people that reinforce your self-worth. We're not showing up because we feel sorry for y'all. We're showing up because we need y'all. We're grateful for y'all. We're inspired and encouraged by y'all. And that's essentially, when I talk to anybody, this is the same energy you get with a one-on-one conversation, or I'm standing in front of 16,000 people at a lecture that I give at universities or conferences. I refuse to acquiesce or sanitize or culturally sanitize my Blackness. It is the proudest thing that I could be as a Black man, because we are the originators of everything, but we own nothing. So seeing the Whitaker Group, seeing this group of people on this call that are owners of their destiny, captains of their purpose, people that are standing in their truth, you're not going to get this at any TED conference, any complex con, none of that. This is the culture on this call that we talk about, this. And so when I show up into these rooms, I'm not worried about getting a yes. I've eliminated the way they can tell me no. That's my strategy. Figure out how they can tell me no. That's through introspection and honesty of what I'm not good at, what I need help with, and what I'm afraid of. And once you face that, and you step into your alpha mentality, they can't touch you. So that's a lot of how I carry myself, simply because I know that I refuse to live a life that does not move the ball downfield for people that are coming after me. That means I have to sacrifice sometimes things that directly benefit me for the greater good of my progeny. And I hope that y'all feel that energy coming through this call, because everybody on here wants that same thing for you.
And this is
shut up
why,
before I start preaching.
No, and this is why I love running the point in these rooms, right? And we get to start it off hot, and I hope y'all understand just the power of our collective voice and community. Jay May, well said. Les, you said something. You said something last week. I'm a pivot, right? You said something this week. Damn, Jay May, you got me. I got to slow the game down a little bit, right? I ain't expect us to go up 20-0 that fast, bro. But the words, once again, y'all understand why I go to my brother for when I need him and when I need the energy. But Les, you said something about when we was talking about the pitch.
Yeah, I think
making sure that everyone gets it right and understands the process of delivering it right. And Jay May said something about the yes, and we talked about some of that. Go for it.
Yeah, I think Jay May kicked it off right. So before you even get to the pitch, it's the mindset, right? So that's kind of what Jay May was talking about: the energy, the mindset, the belief, everything that he just laid out. That's step one. Before you even get to creating pitches, that's how you're walking in to the work that needs to be done. So I think that was an amazing way to kick it off. What we kind of chatted about yesterday is when you go into it, really making sure that you walk into that room, being able to communicate the why, right? A lot of times with pitches, I think people go in thinking, I have an idea, I'm gonna communicate this idea, somebody's gonna like this idea, and we're gonna be all good. But it's not really just about the idea, it's about the why. One of the most powerful questions that somebody could ask you during or after a pitch is, why does anybody care, right? Because there's a lot of creative freedom and ideas that we have. And that's something we need to encourage. We need to have that kind of free form exploration. But when it comes to translating that to a pitch, that needs to, manifest itself into a why. And so that comes down to like, why would anybody care about this? What's the strategy? And then all the ideas and executions and other things that flow from that will be very much well received or easy to understand because you're understanding the why. So I just think that, when it comes to creating a pitch for anything, whether it's a new business, a TV ad, a shoe design, a new retail concept, it's like, why would this exist? Who is this for and why would they care? So that's the place that I always start from.
I think you also need to know your why. You know what I mean? So if I take what J May was saying and what Les was saying and build off of it, like you got to know why you're doing it, because if you're not in it, you're gonna come in and you just kind of paying the bills, you paying rent. But if it's something that is truly that is purposeful and is inside of you, then that pitch is going to it's going to be you in that room, and you're the best author of your story. I think we were talking earlier, James, about, and Jay May, you know this because we used to do this all the time. Like you go into a room and you're pitching a shoe, like we did a new CP, did a new LeBron, whatever. And we would say to each other, hey man, like, this shoe better than anybody else in the world because you designed it. All the details, it backwards and forwards. So it's nothing that anybody else in this room knows better about this shoe than you do. And that was just a shoe. I think that correlates to anything you do when you are a part of that presentation, when the presentation is a part of you. And I think that that also goes back to knowing that we're supposed to be here. Jay May talked about the sauce, like we're the creators, we're the architects of the sauce. So just remember that, like, we're supposed to be here. We're supposed to know more than anybody else. So when we walk into that room, to James's point, we're already up 20. So let's just keep building on that.
And the catch is, man, you really have to own your confidence. And it's the hardest thing to grasp in the beginning, right? Because we all have a superpower. But Jay May made the point earlier, we're made to believe that our superpower is not ours, right? And I won't dig and go deep because I wanna get to something Shireen said, because she's had to pitch and be pitched to, right? Shireen, talk to me about some of that, right? Because you've sat on both sides of the table, so you get a chance to see it on both sides.
Yeah, I would say, just to complement the dialogue right now, my real truth, if I'm being really candid and vulnerable here, would be that for the first 16 years of my career, I showed up in every room not feeling like enough. And thus I chose to assimilate in order to feel like this is how I'm going to close this deal. This is how I'm going to get the CMO to purchase my network. This is how I'm going to make this happen. And more importantly, I will not be disruptive, which sadly is just the bullshit that I believed. And it wasn't until 2016 when I moved over to OWN and the CEO was a Black woman. And I sat in the boardroom and saw this Black woman tell everyone what she wanted to see and do on her network. And then I found myself looking at Queen Sugar and Greenleaf and all these other rich stories going, wow, these stories really reflect more of Black life in a way that I know, but I see myself reflected. So now I'm a part of the product, because before I was peddling shows and narratives that were not for me, not created for me. And the ones that I was asked to pitch towards the end, and part of the reason I was eager to leave Viacom at the time was because they were putting out shows that I think contributed to the narratives and stereotypes that we're up against. So to finally come in a room and say, I represent this network because this network represents me, it's like I came out, and everyone always says to me, well, what did you come out as? And I was like, a Black woman at work, finally free to step in my full authentic self, fully expressed, and bring in my nuance, bring in my specificity, and unapologetic about it, and closing more deals probably in the last 4 years than I have in the 16 before, because I believe in myself. I know I'm enough when I walk in the room. And sadly, it almost took like having a collegiate, or I say like a career HBCU experience. Like I had to go somewhere where I got told you are enough, and the curriculum supports you are enough. So now, no matter what content I'm sharing, reviewing, or putting in front of marketers, Shireen shows up Black first and foremost. Sometimes a Southern accent comes out, sometimes it doesn't. But the point is, I no longer fear how the room sees me. And I recognize, unfortunately, for 16 years, I denied those rooms of the full possibility of me and all the equity and thought that I could have brought to those tables. So I just want to echo and underscore the fact that like your authentic, nuanced, specific self was designed by the creator just for the purposes of you living in your full expression and truth. You must bring that to every room. Nobody else can impersonate or try to be you, and don't try to impersonate or be anyone else. In your style, in your pitch, in your delivery, it's yours. The second thing I would say is I do see a lot of pitches because we see shows that come in and we're looking from creators and producers who are talking about stories. And the truth is, it's about accuracy, it's about authenticity, and it's the why. Why will a group of audiences and consumers wish to consume this content, this product, or this service, or this good? How are they going to see themselves in the story? Why will they tune in when there's so many things they can watch, right? And so it really comes down to how do you break through the clutter? How do you have meaning and purpose? And more importantly, how do you demonstrate the resonance you're going to bring to a group of people who are going to sign up and pay and say, I need, I want, I require this. And that really has been the difference in what type of shows we take on. And more importantly, the one critical other piece of advice that I would give you is know your room. Know who you're going in to see. I don't go into a client presentation. And most I would say now, the storytellers that are coming and pitching at OWN don't come in without knowing the network. And the anecdote that I will tell you is that when your stuff is really good, no matter what, and it's true and it's authentic to you, it should land. And I brought up to the team the other night that when, I think our team saw the pitch for Queen Sugar and the original sort of richness of the show, it was so elaborate and designed with like how lush the land in New Orleans would be and what the family would be doing and what these beautiful, just myriad of like brown hues would be on the screen. And then we launched and prepared for another series called David Makes Man. And so that pitch team came in, and that was from the creator of Moonlight. And he came in with Michael B. Jordan. His name is Terrell Alvin McCraney. And his pitch was on a yellow legal pad. No deck, no presentation, but authentic truth telling about a coming of age story about a Black man. And Oprah got it right away and said, we have to do it. So I bring that up just to simply say, if your product or your thoughts are good and they're great, they will resonate and they will land, especially again, if they're rooted in the authentic you and the story or the product or the goods or the services you wish to sell.
And always something I'll add to that is your reputation shows up in a room before you do, right? And that's in every room you walk into. If you do the work, rooms are inviting you in, right? So you can walk into a room with a yellow legal pad and go, because when you own your superpower, it starts to get easy, right? Like I always look at people like Jay, who's mastered the art of rhyming. It's second nature to him now, right? So when your reputation precedes you, you win Grammys. Portia, I want to get you to rock, man. We up. We got sub you in. Talk to us some.
No, I mean, really to just continue to emphasize the importance of the words you're hearing right now. There's a lot of truth in that in terms of showing up as you, because you're selling yourself as much as the product or the concept. People are engaging with you and they're investing in you. And so when you remember that and you keep that on the forefront, it's much easier to bring your full self. But I also don't want us to, sugarcoat the fact that that's not an easy thing to do, right? That's not easy, that it takes practice, it takes, commitment, conviction, and you have to be okay for the non-acceptance, because not every door is going to open for you as you. And so we have to be okay with the no. You have to be okay with the exception, right? In that it's okay that that's not for me. And that's hard because we have absolutely been trained over the years as a people. And I'll speak for myself. I came through And my journey was one where it was like checking those boxes because I was going to be that Black girl who was smart, who went to college, did all the right things. And I didn't want to step outside that box, and I didn't want to veer because that's not what was supposed to be. So when you get comfortable with stepping outside the line, coloring outside the line, you get more comfortable with what comes with it. And every door is not always going to be open. And that also means being okay with it. And we talked a lot earlier in the week about imposter syndrome, and Shireen, it definitely connected with me in that, you know, the way that you see me now, all of this and all of, you know, that was not me 5, 6, 7 years ago. When I went into corporate, this hair was pressed. This was all together, and I wasn't going to come out of, you know, out of the lane and talk any kind of way that I would at home. Whereas now I have agency, right? I am aware of the agency that I have and the power that I bring into any situation. That again is not an overnight thing. That takes a village, that takes the people around you, that takes the networks that you surround yourself with. You know, when we talk a lot about in the corporate space about sponsorship, it takes that. And so, you know, Shireen, it took that HBCU element in the corporate space for you. I have not had that experience just yet. However, I have had integral people in my life from a professional standpoint that saw me even before I saw myself, that knew there was more in there. And so they kept coaching it out. You know, you could do more. I'm going to let you go ahead and handle it. Come to this presentation. I'm thinking I'm just going to be an observer. The ball gets passed to me to do it because they knew I could. Those are the kinds of things that get you in terms of preparation. I think, you know, James had mentioned, you've got to do the work. That preparation is what's going to give you the confidence and is going to give you the know-how and is going to give you the authority and agency when you go into these pitches. And you got to remember that, because it's not an always on thing. You got to constantly remind yourself of who you are and what you bring to the table. So I don't want to get overly preachy on it, but it is one of those things, like, you know, we can't expect, you know, you to know immediately, but you have it in you, and you just have to remember to bring all those things up to the forefront, because your instincts are powerful. Your instincts are incredibly powerful. So
it's interesting that you say that, because hearing you and Shireen, there's something that what Shireen said that made me think that in our industry, and I think that's how me and J May kind of got cool, because I'm known for being very brash, because I felt like many times when I walked in a room, I always looked at it as a war. I looked at it as the people that it was on the other side of the table wasn't trying to see me win, and I was going to take what I needed to get to move forward, if that makes sense. And it's interesting that for 15 years, I was programmed to go in and just fight, right? And it's all I know. It's just my fight. Like, yeah, I'm going in, what it is. I know who's in the room. I know who I'm shooting first. I know who's going to run. I know who's going to attack, how they going to attack. And I just plan to fight the whole way. And it gets very interesting because it was just last week where I sat in a room for the first time and looked around the room and was like, oh shit, I ain't got to fight nobody in this room, right? I'm surrounded by people who really want to see me win. Or if there's someone in this room who doesn't want to see me win, there's enough people in this room to hard check those who don't, right? And I think that speaks to the community we're starting to build and the way we're starting to have each other's back, right? So spaces like this becomes incredibly safe for us because we get to come here, be vulnerable, learn, and support each other. So I wanted to take a minute and just back out and say, like, yo, even myself, I'm learning and healing. And I spent, the first half of my career fighting. And now it's so good to see us in this space where we can build and help one another. J-May, I'm a click back to you because I feel like a lot of times when we talk, it's always like it's therapy for me because you've had to live the life that I lived in JJG. You sit in a room and unless y'all all sit in these rooms at times, Shireen, you're in a beautiful place because you work for one of the best entrepreneurs on the planet, in my opinion, right? But I think the rest of us, you know, I get to work with amazing partners and more importantly, great people, but we still have to, you know, we still got to go to war a lot of days. J-May, talk to me about some of that, knowing that you're going in, right? You have this, and listen, I have confidence, right? But you radiate it, right? And it's a way, the energy gives me energy, right? So talk to me about how you develop that confidence to come in a room, right? And listen, you talked a lot in our session about mental health and building and getting there. And I said myself too, it took me 5 years to get an idea what my superpower was. And it probably took me another 3 to realize I could fly, right? Talk about getting there.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's a journey, you know. For me, it was a hurry up offense to heal from the trauma I had faced, you know, growing up on the south side of Chicago, because I was Nike's effectively first Black design intern from an industrial design standpoint, you know, and it was just me in the room at 19 years old in 2001. Looking around the room and no one looked like me, but everyone was making decisions on my behalf. And the thing that I started to realize throughout that process was a lot of what they were saying was a regurgitation of things that I already knew to be true. So then I started to just kind of unpack a lot of the comments, unpack the gamesmanship, unpack the structure of the game I was in, and realize that the rules and the game was rigged, you know, and it wasn't in my favor. And I had to make a very clear decision. If I engage in playing their game, I've already forfeited the one thing that gives me an advantage, which is my intellectual and emotional sovereignty. If I submit myself and subject myself to their rules, to their game, then I also submit myself and subject myself to feeling how I feel about myself based on what they feel about me. You get these artificial reviews each year that are supposed to tell you how you've grown and how you've done in comparison to your peers. I find it laughable considering that the context by which I grow has to be taken into account through the lens of my ancestral trauma. For me to do something exceptional means that I'm about 200 years past the moment of trauma that I've been carrying in my DNA through epigenetics. If you're into that type of stuff, this is a nerd moment. And, you know, I have to overcome way more to show up as excellent, right? It takes a lot more for me to be prepared. As someone mentioned on this call, preparation is the key to being able to go into these rooms with confidence, because if I know what I'm saying and I've prepared and I've admitted to myself what I'm not good at, and I've exploited that to a degree where I've allowed myself to receive feedback, because there's a difference between a feedback and a critique. And I think we need to really understand that. Critiques means that it's peer-to-peer, you understand, and you have an expert level of understanding to give me intimate information to make what I'm doing better. Feedback is you just have a visceral knowledge of what I've done, and you're subjectively saying this is how you can do it better. We conflate feedback and critiques, and we take critiques to heart because we feel like it's a critique of us as a people in the creative industry. So I've looked at everything as a gift. Feedback is a gift. Critiques are a gift. Haters are a gift. Negativity is a gift. And I choose whether or not I can engage with that reality. I don't engage with that reality. I tell myself every day, things are happening in front of me, they're not happening to me. Because no person and no man and no company will ever make me feel any different about myself, because I know what I've overcome to be in my position. And unless a person can go back in time and tell me everything I went through was cap, I'm not going to stand in any room with somebody wearing some tight fitting chinos and some Allbirds making me feel like I don't belong there. It's not happening. I refuse, because the obstacles we face just to get out of our door and make it home are miracles. By the sheer nature of us being on this call, we are a function of a miracle that occurred today. Every breath we take is a miracle, because somebody can decide that we are a threat where we stand, that we are not valuable enough to be considered a human. Somebody can decide our fate without our permission every single day. So if you're in this room and you're in this moment, you are a miracle. When you stand in that purpose, you ain't got to worry about nobody else, because you're not playing for now. I tell everybody, you work with me, I play for forever. I don't play for now. I play for my legacy. I play for eternity. I play for making sure that I don't just tear down the door and open the door, but I rip off every single shingle and window and redesign and reimagine that whole thing from the ground up, because it needs to be inclusive of our feelings. And as a Black man, if we don't talk about how we feel, we're missing out on growth. So I've done therapy, I've cried, I've healed, I've apologized, I've sought forgiveness, I've forgiven myself for my transgressions. And I know that ultimately at the end of the day, nothing I've done is ever going to stop me from being where I need to be, because I'm under the law of grace. I'm not under the law of man. And that's just how you have to carry yourself. And it's really hard to get there, but you have to die to this worldly expectation that exceptionalism is the only outcome for Blackness. Blackness is not monolithic. It's okay if all you've ever done is to be, someone who gets a little bit of success by owning maybe a small barbershop. That's significant to us. You don't have to be a billionaire. I respect, Robert Smith, but I respect the guy who owns a small bodega in my neighborhood who's had that for 40 years and he owns the building. I respect the person that's getting up every morning, that's a security guard that puts food on the table for his family in an honest way. So in our community, we have to start valuing that, there are different levels of excellence that we can all celebrate. It doesn't have to be the exceptional publicly facing one. Consistency is a form of excellence. If you're a consistently good person and you're kind, I salute you. So when we democratize greatness in our community and we expand the aperture on what's considered acceptable for Blackness, then we're going to get to a place of healing, because we keep thinking Blackness looks one way. And I'll tell y'all, it does not. Blackness is so beautiful and it's so rich and it's so diverse. And we got to celebrate every version of it, because we do the best job at tearing each other down. I'm looking at the Shorty's info at Afro Punk when she came out with a little bit of a little bit of outfit that made people upset about her body type. I'm like, why are you shaming this sister? Let her be. But we look outside and point at them, but we do a good job of tearing ourselves down. So I think with our community, we got to love each other and accept each other first before we expect them to do it. So that's why I got confidence, because I feel like I've been loved for being a Black nerd. I've been loved for being a kid that was in the streets at one point. I've been loved for having learning differences and being on the spectrum. And I've been accepted in every form of my Blackness. And the people who don't love me, it's okay. That's none of my business. I just focus on the people that do. And that's where I get the confidence from, James. I lean into folks like you and all the folks on this call that I know genuinely care about me. And I know genuinely don't matter if I'm, back being a janitor again, because I've cleaned toilets. I've folded people's clothes. I've cleaned homes. And I've been at the highest of the highest, having private meetings with dignitaries of countries and corporations and all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm still the same human being. And all that matters to me is that I look at you, but I look at everybody on this call as an equal, because none of us are greater than any of us. Collectively, we're greater than all of us, but none of us individually are greater than any of us. And that's what gives me the confidence, man. I'm not alone in this journey. I got all y'all with me in every room I'm in, every negotiation, every award ceremony. I know I feel the ancestors on my shoulders. I feel y'all with.
And I'm going to jump in and say something that one of our esteemed colleagues in the background, right? And I think the most important thing that I think everybody needs to get out of this is the master the pitch. You got to master yourself. You got to get the most important relationship is the one with yourself in the mirror. And if you don't look at yourself in that mirror and look in your eyes and have that conversation with yourself, if you can't do that confidently, you haven't mastered yourself yet. So that's step one, right? Once you master that and do the work, the rest is the rest, right? And the confidence and being intentional and having experience, some of the other things will come. But I think what you've heard from our panel is probably the most important message is like, yo, master yourself, grow, learn, most importantly, heal. We're going to take a couple minutes to take some questions. When you ran a point and you playing on a team that's so talented, I don't even got to bring the ball up no more. I became a fan myself between all the conversations that's happening with everybody on the panel. So I appreciate the energy. Chantel, do we got any good questions coming out? I seen a couple on.
We do, yeah. A favorite who always comes on with good questions and just really taking notes. David.
Yeah, David you never miss, and you're literally in the center of my screen, bro. You want to unmute him?
Oh, he's on mute.
For sure. All right. First of all, wonderful to meet you guys. My name is David, and my question is basically about when to strike. I'm a part of a couple of programs, but the biggest one being Apple's entrepreneurship program. Basically, they've done a lot with us, given us a lot of information and taught us, and then also have, as of recently, done a lot of press with us. We were just on the Apple website. They just Apple just kind of organized an Input Mag article about us and all of this kind of stuff. And so we've been gaining a lot of momentum with that. And a lot of my mentors, particularly those who are VCs, are saying basically that right now is when to strike. In terms of, we have all these quotes about Apple being proud of us and how that's like that's a flex for sure. But my biggest question is in terms of when we once we get into these meetings, those types of things, those types of that type of support's great, but I don't necessarily think the KPIs as of right now, if I get into a room with another VC, would really require the kind of money that I would actually be wanting to raise if we ever got to that point. So I'd love to know, just in terms of, I know some of you guys have actually messaged me in the comments already about this question too, but just understanding fully when to strike on that kind of stuff, and when understanding how to use the momentum that you're having or the support that you're having to build more momentum, and not necessarily missing your shot when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah,
I think that's a great question. I think I would definitely love to hear what Jamie has to say, just from everything he's done in with Trilicon and all of that. But like in the last year, I've transitioned to having to be in a lot of meetings where we're raising capital and pitching to a lot of VCs as a part of my role at Spring. And I think one of the things to think about is having that good press is great, and it's something that we sought out and capitalized and tried to, gain momentum from that. But I would say it's never a substitute from what your actual business model is, what the KPIs are, and what you're going to do with your funding. So I know, man, like it's a tough thing when especially when you're at the beginning stages of that entrepreneurship journey, and you get these W's that are big and they're good looks, and you do want to strike while the iron's hot. But I would say don't let that derail your plan, right? Because those looks are going to continue to come. That press is going to continue to help. But when you feel like you have the right KPIs, you know what you're going to do with some VC money, you feel like you've already seen signals of the scalability of it, you don't want to give that up early, because a lot of times you get a good press hit, you have somebody come in that has a big check that they want to write, you don't have necessarily the leverage because your KPIs aren't crazy yet. Then you get in a deal that's probably, not positioned in the best way and doesn't give you the leverage that you want. So I would say, at the risk of sounding like an old man, like, you're young, you're still at the beginning of that entrepreneurship journey. There's value in that, right? There's a lot of value in that. The years that you have ahead of you are, invaluable. So that's my point of view. I'd love to hear what Jamie has to say, just because I know he plays in that world a lot more than I do.
Real quick, but I'm actually the one who doesn't. But I'm the one who doesn't want to take the money. I'm actually, because I don't like taking other people's money unless I feel like they're gonna help me, first of all, and also I think I need it. And like, as of right now, I'm kind of like, no, like I built, like I'm gonna cuss, but like I built a fucking machine learning platform without any money. So yeah. I don't know what somebody's really gonna bring me right now that I can't already get all, but it's just the pressure right now from other people who are saying like, strike.
Sometimes the best and hardest flex is the no, right? Because like you said, you already built it. So you're not just looking for money. They got to come with more than that. What strategic a benefit or other elements do they bring to the table, right? Because money's not going to be the thing that probably takes you exactly where you need to go right now. So yeah.
And always have the conversation, even if you know you don't need the bread, right? Because you always create relationships, right? And no now may be strategic yes or strategic maybe later, right? So the conversation gets you information.
Yeah, don't burn those bridges, create the bridges. You know what I mean? Like, you want to continually create and build that network. And you never know, in these interactions that you have, as you start to build your own personal board of directors, it may be that they really are going to help you in terms of how do you refine your marketing? How are you going to be, again, to Les's earlier point around strategy, just thinking about the things that you may have more weakness in versus strength, and just surrounding yourself with those experts that actually can. And going back to what Jay had said earlier, you've got to surround yourself with people who are going to be vested in your best interest and care about you in terms of seeing what your future is. And so it's hard in your space. So having lived in Silicon Valley, it's tough because everyone's spitting the same game, and everyone it's a machine and they're churning, but you've got to be discerning. And it sounds like you're already on that path, but don't cut yourself short in that. Even when you're saying no, there still could be value in the relationship. So just keep that in mind.
Along that same line, can you all speak to the importance of building reps, because I think even listening to what Les had shared off of what David shared, how do you build reps in the art of pitching, and what are some of the things that you do in your personal life to build that?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think about the wins. I think about the L's. I think about the feedback. And some of the folks on here have been in some of these pitches with me, but I can remember presenting to Coach John Thompson, and like it was me, Coach John Thompson, and about 100 people at Nike. And we were talking about Black History Month. And, I started off, I was like, and coach, and he was like, hold on, young man, before you speak another fucking word, you need to tell me some facts about Black History Month. And I was like, I could tell nobody in that room knew the answers to these questions, right? Like this was like, it was white space like you would never hear. Mm-hmm. And I said, hey, Carter G. Woodson started in 1926, it became a month in 1976, and just kept going and going and going. And like, when I tell you, I walked out of that room with the most confidence I've ever had. Like, I mean, Coach John Thompson, 6'9", like one of the most biggest figures in sports, in Black history, in social movement. Like, this is somebody I looked up to my whole life that like, ultimately, he asked me that question because I knew the answer, but he asked me that question so everybody in that room knew that I knew the answer. So when I walked out of that room, the level of confidence I had was completely different than I had when I walked in. And I think that like, there's moments when you're doing pitches that like, hold on to those moments, hold on to that. Cause like now when I go into a room with, CEO, Serena, LeBron, whomever, like I remember Coach John Thompson's got my back. I know he had my back in that room. He's going to have my back in all these other rooms because, he asked me that question, I answered it, and he created the space for everybody else to say that, this young man knows what he's doing. So I think like remembering those things, like whether it's a failed pitch, whether it's a pitch that went really well, or whether it was one that like just had like one really sharp memory that is like, man, wow, that was a moment. Like writing those defining moments down, learning from them and taking them with you into the other pitches is just so important.
And something I'll jump in and say is we talked about mastering yourself. It's also mastering what it is that you're into, right? Because once you own your role, or once you own or a student of your craft, it starts to become natural. I honestly don't practice or never practice for pitches, right? I'm so dug into what we do, and it's so connected to my belief system and who I am. I'm just naturally being, right? And to J May's point, when you work in our culture, you work in our space, and you've lived in our space, you kind of just show up, right? It becomes like naturally part of who you are. But you still got to make sure in reps, you're thinking about the things that connect, how they connect, why they connect. And then there's the part where we talked about there's a superpower that we all have. You got to find and discover that superpower. So if you master your craft and you get very comfortable with yourself, you'll begin to realize what separates you from the other people in the room.
I think though too, James, Shireen had made a really valid point earlier, and as it connects back to the pitch, is understanding and knowing your audience in your room. And so with all of that authenticity and your true self, you do need to understand what you're trying to get out of that meeting. So you may walk into a pitch knowing, really understand what is success going to look like for me coming out of here. What do I want to achieve? And so you have to tailor your pitch to be, as simplistic and pointed to get that point across as you can. Because at the end of the day, you're not likely going to get hours and hours of time to go through every detail and, map it out and get them to follow you on that journey. You've got to hit them immediately. And in terms of what is most important, going back to Shireen and Les earlier about that, why really you standing in your truth and your presence in terms of the storytelling, the essence of it, as of you, and then really bringing that package on home so that not only are you selling it, but you're connecting it so that they feel a connection to what you are putting down for them. Because that's at the end of the day, when people are pitching to me, I'm looking for those threads. I'm looking for the connection that I'm like, yes, I could, I'm connecting the dots. I'm like, I could do this. This could be big. This could be a brand campaign. This could be, if you're just pushing through and just steamrolling it and losing it, and they're glazed over and you've totally missed it, you've got to think quick on your feet to start pivoting and bringing them back in to you, because you essentially are looking to hold their hand through that journey so that at the end, whether it's a no or not, you know you connected. And then at the end, you're feeling solid that before I came in here, I said success would look like this for me coming out of that meeting, and whether or not you did it. So you got to really start to put all of these pieces together, and it happens fast. You're moving fast, you're talking fast, you're nervous, you're sweating, your palms are, all of this shit's happening, but you've got to keep it in. And that's where James had mentioned about the reps. He was talking about the work. It's the preparedness, it's practicing. Don't get cute. I know half of y'all sit in the mirror and you primping, you doing this, you getting fly, you take 15 pictures for Instagram before you post it. You've got to put that amount of work into yourself for when you get on that stage, so to speak, the hypothetical stage for any pitch that you're going to put out there for. So I just want to kind of circle that back. This is the mom and me.
Yeah, I mean,
talking
Portia,
about
I would jump in,
16-year-old.
right? Like,
Don't take your ass out there looking crazy.
Even Obama practices.
Okay.
You know, like think about that, right? Obama has script writers. He's practicing before he goes and deliver those address, State of the Union, whatever. Like, if Obama's practicing, I'm in the mirror practicing.
That's exactly right.
Something else I want to throw all of y'all real fast, because we are a group of confident men and women, right? But there's this one word that we all have heard a lot of times in our lives. You know what it is? No. We're not interested. Not now. That's not within our scope. This doesn't align with our strategy. Talk about navigating the no. I know we got a couple minutes left. We only got a couple minutes left, but I would love to hear from each of you about navigating the no before we wrap up.
So I'll say this really quickly. And this could just be me in summary. 3 things. The first is, aside from the practice, I don't go into any pitch before declaring and expressing gratitude for what that outcome will be. I have a ritual that I do every morning. I'm going to put it here, then I'm going to put it in the chat, but it's the 5-minute journal. It gives you these prompts. It's literally 5 minutes, but it's like you are already thanking the creator for what you want to happen in that day. Wouldn't it be great if I go in and kill this presentation, get the $1 million that I need, and launch this campaign in ease? Like, or that I am so powerful in that room. Like, that's how specific I get, that they're going to tell me they loved what I said and then write the check. I do that every day about everything that's happening, personal and professional. And when I tell you, it's like lightning. Maybe it's because I believe, but the truth is I try to actualize what I want to see happen from a place of gratitude before I even enter the room, and set the expectation for myself, but also create the space by way of thought. I will also say that I'm so used to the no's, but I don't stop at the no. The most savvy negotiators that I have are my 9 and 6-year-olds who ask me why when I say no all the time. Well, why? Well, why can't we have? And why, and why, and why? And if you keep asking why can't you do this campaign? Why can't you provide this money? What you often find is that it requires said person who's saying no to really back into this. So we don't have the money. Well, why don't you have the money? Where are you investing instead? We're investing here. Why are you investing with them instead of here? Is it like you really keep the why coming to make someone really deduce it down to, I have to give you the absolute truth. And sometimes what you'll find is there is no real why, right? And so at the end of the day, then you're talking, there's another currency on with which you could potentially trade. The third thing I would just simply say is that, and someone said it earlier, sometimes the no is really, and Oprah, Miss Winfrey says this all the time, so this is not mine, but I subscribe to it, which is sometimes it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. Some no's are supposed to happen to put you in the other room to get the yes from the people that are going to affirm and see your vision and see what you're offering the way it should be honored, right? Some people can't. And sometimes we take that rejection as though it's a failure for us, but rather really, I believe spirit and creators creating something else for you in another room. And sometimes that's what you just must truly believe and know for yourself, especially if you have asked for the best and believe you're entitled and deserve and are worthy of the best to show up for you. And then finally, I'm an ideator and I generate ideas. Here's my pitch tonight before we get off the phone. I want to get with J May. I want to create sound bites, right, that you can sell before you go into a pitch. And for a subscription, you just play it on whatever your device is. And we can catalog them based on, you got to pitch this, you had a conversation, you did this, you need to get lifted, and just listen for 1 minute and then go into the room and do what you need to do. I'd be the first to subscribe. But secondly, I think there is a real business model there. And that's what I'm concluding with for tonight.
Well said.
And David had already built the app for that while we were waiting.
Okay, making the connections, David. See, you've been holding out because you were presented an opportunity. There you go. Perfect.
100%. Just like, let me know. I'll send you the test flight link after this.
And everybody, so I'm respectful of everybody's time. I knew the time would fly. I knew the panel was loaded. I was honestly in the audience tonight myself. I was just sitting back, watching it, going along for the ride. Once again, I'm appreciative just for the community, man, just being able to build with y'all. I think everybody likes to think this is something that we do for the world. I think I'm doing it for myself selfishly, right? Because I get better every time we do it, and I just feel, I feel a little more whole. So I just, once again, I just want to acknowledge each of you and thank you for spending your time with us. You guys could have been anywhere, and y'all came to spend time with us, so it's appreciated. And once again, we don't take it for granted, and we'll see you guys next session. Please check out Be Social, please, the Whitaker Group, I'm a Minier APB social status for next community events. We doing something almost daily. Chantel's running the crew, and we really appreciate you guys.